our first little meeting on Tuesdays in the new session, and I want to thank you all for joining me. And we have a new leadership team, Senators Durbin, Stabenow, and Klobuchar. Senator Murray, as you know, is now not in the leadership because she's the Senate pro tem, although she comes to our meetings and we take her input because she's so great. Okay, and I'm going to have to be quick today because we're headed to the White House this afternoon, as you know. But before I go, I wanted to tell you about the productive lunch we had and what we've laid out for the few weeks ahead. First, we want to continue our successes in the last Congress and continue delivering for the American people. This was the most successful 2 years in decades. Many people compare it to the Great Society favorably or equally, some even New Deal because of what we did on climate. So we want to continue doing that, and we want to continue working in a bipartisan way wherever we can. But unfortunately right now, House Republicans, at least where they seem to be headed, have different ideas. On the very first day of votes, they made their first order of business to make it easier for the ultra-rich tax cheats to escape accountability, at the same time blowing a $100 billion hole in the deficit. They say they care about the deficit, but they seem to care more about making sure that those very, very wealthy people who use lawyers and accountants to go through all kinds of loopholes and pay a lower percentage than the average American, that seems to be what they care about, because they actually created a hole in the deficit by preventing us from collecting money from those people. And that's what CBO said, not us. And speaking of the deficit, we're now witnessing the House GOP recklessly flirt with default. Listen, it's clear. Default would be a catastrophe for American working families. It's not an abstract issue. It's going to affect every American family severely and adversely. And playing brinksmanship, taking hostages, is being risky and not caring about average people. So let's look at some of it. If the MAGA GOP stops paying our nation's bills, Americans pay the price. Political brinksmanship would be a massive hit to local economies, American families, nothing less than an economic crisis. Here's what would happen. For instance, interest rates would go way up. If you have a home loan, the average person could pay tens of thousands of dollars more on their mortgage if they have a variable rate mortgage. It would hurt Social Security dramatically, hurt Medicare. The only people who will pay the price is partisan politics. Home values will go down because when mortgage interest rates go up, home values go down. People have less money to buy a home because they're putting a lot into the mortgage. And now, listen to this. House Republicans, some of the House MAGA Republicans have asked their leadership we hear that some House Republicans, from House Republicans, that their leadership has agreed to give GOP radicals a vote on a 30% national sales tax across the board. 30% sales tax on everything. Meaning right now, as inflation finally begins to drop, Republicans are looking to make American families pay 30% more for every single thing they buy. The Republican national sales tax is a disaster for American families. And you don't need to take it from me. Grover Norquist said the proposal is an assault on your retirement savings. And he's hardly an ally of ours. Steve Forbes said it would raise house prices by $100,000 and raise American bills by thousands. There's nothing fair about this Republican sales tax. So if Republicans want to push this terrible proposal, they're welcome to make their case, make our day. Similarly, if Republicans want to play brinksmanship with deficit and demanding cuts, they need to show us exactly what they want to cut. They have said they're going to put all these bills on the floor, regular order, and have votes. Well, let's see what cuts they actually want to make, and let's see if they can pass any of them. I doubt it. I doubt it. So, to my GOP colleagues, if you want to talk about all this stuff, then you have an obligation to show the American people precisely what kind of cuts you want to make. Do you want to cut Social Security? Do you want to cut pay raises for our troops? Do you want to cut Medicare? Do you want to cut police? Do you want to cut helps for the veterans? Republicans owe the American people answers. In lunch, we agreed Senate Democrats are ready and united to roll up our sleeves and deliver for the American people. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Chuck. The new MAGA majority in the House has promised us endless investigations, confrontations, impeachments, and chaos. And they also said that they want to play games with our national debt. Instead of paying our bills, which is our moral and legal obligation, they have decided to make a game of this. The closest thing that the new Speaker has come to suggesting an approach he might follow is to suggest that he's going to eliminate wokeism from the defense budget. Class, do we have anyone who has a definition of wokeism for us here? Anybody? Anybody? Of course not. This is MAGA gibberish, which might make sense to those who are catatonic watching Fox TV, but it doesn't make sense to the American people, and it certainly doesn't address the responsibility which Congress has to pay our debts and get it done quickly. We are already suffering because of this suggested problem of passing the debt ceiling. Isn't it interesting? We did it 3 times during the Trump administration with bipartisan roll calls, and now, under the leadership of the current Speaker of the House, there's a question mark as to whether it will be done. While at the same time, Donald Trump was creating more than 25% of our national debt in 4 years. 230 years of American history, the national debt, Trump added 25% to it in 4 years. So let's not pose for holy pictures when it comes to budget balancing. Let's do our constitutional responsibility and pass the debt ceiling.
Senator Stabenow.
Well, good afternoon. It's great to be back with all of you. You know, Senate Republicans have a real choice to make now this year. They can work with us on behalf of the American people, or they can side with the House MAGA Republicans and create chaos while working to benefit the wealthy and the well-connected. We know which choice is better for the American people. But, as Senator Schumer said, the first order of business by House Republicans was voting to protect wealthy tax cheats. Now think about that. People in my state, you know, they're willing to contribute to the strength of America, but they think everybody ought to do that. Everybody ought to pay their fair share. And in fact, on top of everything else they're talking about, it was a move that ballooned the deficit by $140 billion. Of course, ballooning the deficit is a Republican specialty. Almost 30% of the national debt, the national public debt that we have today, was done during 4 years of Donald Trump. And they were willing to raise the debt ceiling, not once, not twice, 3 times during the Trump years, to make sure that they were paying for huge tax cuts to the wealthy and the well-connected. Now, fast forward to the Biden administration. The deficit has fallen by $1.4 trillion under President Biden, and we have the strongest job growth in a generation. There's a huge difference. So, by working with us, Senate Republicans have an opportunity to make life better for the American people. We can pass a bipartisan farm bill that will support our farmers and our families. We can responsibly make sure our country pays its bills. We can continue to create good-paying jobs, strengthening our national security, support veterans, ensure that seniors can retire with dignity. Meanwhile, House MAGA Republicans are creating chaos, playing chicken with America's checkbook, while proposing an agenda that will hurt American families and businesses from coast to coast. Senate Republicans have a choice: chaos or cooperation. We urge them, on behalf of the American people, to choose bipartisan cooperation so we can get things done. That's what the American people deserve.
Senator, and welcome for the first time.
Oh, the first time ever at the microphone.
Team. Not the first time here, but here we are. Senator from Minnesota.
Thank you, Chuck, and thanks for your leadership. So I spent the last few weeks at home in Minnesota, where despite the Vikings' loss, to the Giants, who later went on to not do well. Okay, it was a great game. It was a great game. All right, so I spent the last few weeks at home in the middle of a lot of snow and ice, but I visited 23 counties for 2023. And I was on the Canadian border, I was down in Rochester, and I can tell you, based on that, red counties, blue counties, talking to people in long-term care, what they want is to make sure that they can move forward. And they need workforce, they need child care, they need to make things more affordable. What they don't need is chaos. Over and over again, they said that to me. Think about the American people. We've been in hundreds of millions of silos because of the pandemic. We're now coming together. We're gathering together, moving businesses forward. The last thing they want to do is go backwards. They don't want to go backwards to January 6th and what happened right in this building, and they don't want to go backwards to what they just saw in the House of Representatives for that 3 days of hell. They want to move forward, and that means the international no sign over chaos. It means making things more affordable. It means being common sense. It means working across the aisle, which this Senate has shown it could do time and time again, with the bill that Senator Schumer led on semiconductor chips, with the work that we did together when it came to the infrastructure bill, with the work the Democrats did on allowing for prescription drug negotiation, as well as investing for the first time ever in a big way when it comes to climate change. People want to move forward. They don't want to see the chaos. It's as simple as that. And that's why in America we pay our bills and we do the right thing.
And just to underscore Amy's point, you look at the other side, it's total chaos. On our side, there's unity. I'll be going to the White House with our leadership team and with Leader Jeffries to continue to speak in one unified voice. Yes. Well, the bottom line is the debt ceiling has been done 3 times under Donald Trump, once under Biden, all in a bipartisan way with no brinksmanship or hostage-taking. That's where it's got to be. Yes. Yes.
Can I ask you about the Arizona Senate race next year? If Senator Sinema runs, do you expect to support her or the Democratic nominee?
Look, Senator Sinema is an excellent Congress member and a Senate member, and she has done a lot of good things here, but it's much too early to make a decision. Yes.
How concerned are you about the way that President Biden handled classified documents, and not only him, we're now learning about Vice President Mike Pence? And do you think it's time for the president to come out and tell the American people exactly what happened?
Look, there's a huge difference between how the president handled it and how former President Trump handled it. One cooperated fully with the authorities, the other stonewalled for over a year. And the bottom line is simple. There are prosecutors in both cases. They ought to be able to proceed unimpeded without anyone pressuring them. Yes.
In 2019, before President Trump's 2020 reelect, you helped negotiate a 2-year budget deal as part of raising the debt ceiling, included $320 billion discretionary spending increase. Would you be open to negotiating with Republicans again in the same
I'm not going to negotiate in public. Obviously, again, we want to make sure that we negotiate a budget that's good for the average working family. We did that in the omnibus bill. We were very pleased with the outcome there, and hopefully it can be done again without brinksmanship. But I'm not going to get into specifics. Last one, Manu.
Given that we've learned about Mike Pence having these documents, is it not incumbent on the Senate to investigate, to have some sort of oversight to ensure that the nation's secrets aren't being leaked out everywhere in people's private homes?
Senator Peters is looking at bipartisan legislation in terms of classified documents. I support his efforts. In the meantime, on the specific cases, the appropriate thing to do is have special prosecutor, and that's what's happening. Thank you, everybody.